Welcome to the Iferia TechCast, where we bring you all things science, engineering, technology, and innovation. Today, we are joined by Bill Kasko, the President and CEO of Frontline Source Group, a nationwide staffing and executive searching firm. For over 21 years, he's been connecting top talent with leading organizations and he also brings a unique macro perspective as a 17-year contributor to the Dallas Federal Reserve's Beige Book Committee. He is the architect behind the trademarked people process service methodology and even offers an unprecedented 5-year placement warranty. In this episode, we'll explore the systems behind strategic hiring and how economic trends shape the future of work. So, Bill, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you here today.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate being on the show.
Right, let's dive in. So, you've led Frontline Source Group for 21 years and contributed to the Federal Reserve's Beige Book for 17 of those years. So what first sparked your interest in connecting these two worlds, the micro level of staffing and the macro level of economic policy?
Well, they go hand in hand. And so, when it comes to the way that, we live and the way that we have to feed ourselves and grow and have families and live our lives, it revolves around how do we generate revenue? How do we make an income? And the Federal Reserve Beige Book is the collaboration of that information and looking at it to understand in advance of when things are about to happen, what's taking place within the employment. Employment is the first thing to get hit when there are any type of downturns or even an uptick, let's say in the economy or what's taking place. And so being involved in that and being able to share what we're seeing both from a local standpoint. Originally, when we got into this, we were really just based in Texas. So we had locations just throughout the state of Texas. And obviously over the years, grown into this nationwide footprint. And so our pulse has been on, this is for the Dallas Federal Reserve. So it's a certain section of states, but it's also interesting because we can compare it to other areas of the country. Texas is almost like its own country when you look at it in many ways. And so what we know is that what's happening here isn't necessarily the same reflection, let's say, that you're seeing in New York City, but it does correlate to when we start seeing trends and changes taking place. There is a ripple effect. The gathering of the two was the sharing of the information, if you want to call it, straight from the guy on the street, right? So you're getting that information straight from someone who's experiencing it every day compared to a lot of the other data and information that we receive maybe from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. The ADP report, for example, came out today. Of course, we're in the middle of government shutdown, so we haven't had data and information for over 30 days. We don't really know what's going on, but to be honest, many months that information comes out and we still don't know what's going on because it's hard to believe when you have a feeling or that hiring's taking place and the government's telling you it's not. And so it's just been a really key avenue for us to share that information with the government and a separate piece of the government to really look at it so they can understand and make decisions better for monetary policy.
All right. So, Bill, you've trademarked the people process service methodology for the engineers and system thinkers in our audience. Can you break down this framework? So, how does it bring a systematic, repeatable process to something as human-centric as hiring?
Yeah, it's interesting. So when I started the company, really had this ideal that, you had to build a company, you had to have the best people. And was something that you understand when you're starting to put together a team that you want to surround yourself, whether you're running a company or you're a coach of a sports team, you surround yourself with people that are better than you or the best that you have out there. So really recognized that people part of this was so important. And so came up with the idea that we had to have the best people, had to bring in this group and make sure that we had the right process in place, right process to run the business, How are we going to operate? What are we going to do? So as we started spelling out, bringing in the right people, then it was a matter of also spelling out the right process, the way to develop the team. How are we going to sell? What's the product? What's the service? Which then it came into the service, right? It came into the level of service that we were going to provide, what we wanted to do, what we really wanted to be known for. And so reality is that we kind of recognized that it became these three parts that were vital to start the business. So the people and the process and the service. What's interesting is that at that same time, kind of recognized or woke up one day and realized that that's kind of how we live our lives as well. And that as we go through life, it wasn't just about the business, but we do the same thing in life. We grow up in our families or communities, and we have these people around us, or we have our significant others that we do as we start a family maybe. And so you have these people that you're surrounding yourself with, but you also live your life with a process. And I don't think you really realize that, and you don't think about it because it's not something we wake up and talk about a lot. But you do. You have a routine. Maybe you get up every day at 7. Maybe some days we joke on the weekends we sleep in later or something. But you have this process that you're living your life through. And it was interesting to see, oh wait, it wasn't just business. We do this. And then the service piece, it's that part of our life as humans. What is it that we give back? Is it to our religion? Is it to our community? Is it to our family? What is it that we give back at the end of the day? That's really that service. And what we found is that the two, both from a business professional side and your personal side, correlate together in crazy ways. What was even more interesting is that we recognize going forward that as you're building a business, as you're growing your business, you're running your business, as you're running through life, as you're growing a family and you're moving forward, we have ups and downs. Just like in business, we have it in life. You have times you're in a good place, things are good. You're just lucky to have these things. You've worked hard, that everything's going great, and then something happens. It's just like boom, it hits you. Or you could think about even COVID, right?
Yeah.
COVID was a time that, geez, we all had our lives going and things going on and businesses that were going on, and then COVID shut it down, and so it stopped a piece. Those three pillars, when something happens, whether it's in business or in life, you can look at those three and you can pinpoint where is it within that? Where does the problem lie? Is it around the people, what you're doing, who you're involved with? Is it your clients? Is it not having the right business? And then the process, right? Is it, hey, we didn't handle this correctly with the client, we need to fix it. Or, hey, my marriage isn't going well. There's a problem with that. I've got to figure out what I'm doing different. Why is it right? And then the service piece. Are we not providing a certain level? I'm not giving things back. They need my help. But every time we ran into something over the last 21, 22 years, we've been able to really take a step back and take a look at it to figure out where is it and identify which one of those three pillars were the problem so that we could immediately attack that issue, fix it. And when things are going smooth, this is the crazy part. When things are going smooth in your life, all three of those pillars are at the top of their game. Everything is running you're right there. Everything's going great. But the moment something happens, the moment that you feel a turn or something's not right, you can take a step back, identify one of those three. It will be in one of those three pillars. And so from a business standpoint, when we first started identifying that and looking at it, it was wonderful because it was just like, oh, well, it just the people we hired are not the right people. And then one day we woke up and all of a sudden it wasn't just one, it was like two of them at the same time. It was like, oh my gosh, it's the people and we changed our process. This isn't right. And so you go through that and you go through a time in business where they talk about, I had to burn the house down. I had to clean the house. I had to get rid of everybody. I had to start over again. We do the same thing sometimes in life. Sometimes in life we get to a point or something happens and it doesn't work out and we've got to start all over again. And it's the same thing. So the people process service, and we trademarked that years ago, which was a wonderful thing that we did. We're really proud of because it really stands for who we are. Companies have different things that they stand for. It could be a Starbucks and you're going to be known for your coffee, and Could be Tiffany, and you're going to be known for your jewelry. Frontline
Mm.
Source Group, we're going to be known for what we do, I guess, but it's not going to be the same in any way. I wish it was. I'd be a really rich person, but it's not going to be that. But instead, we want to be known for the ones who understand that people are the most important part of what we do every day, because it's interesting. That's what we do. We put people to work, but it's also important for the people that we work with, and then our families and how important they are. And then that process is, ever evolving and changing, especially over the last 2 years with AI. If you think about it from a business standpoint, we've had to completely change our process. It's been 100% around that process and what we're doing. And then how does it affect the people? What comes into play? And in fact, we can look back now and recognize we have been able to actually eliminate a few positions and incorporate that into, I really look at it as AI and automation, but into that space. Well, now it's going to be the same thing at home. How is that going to change? And if you think about it, we've been through this before. 45 years ago, my dad brought home the first microwave to our family. We all had to carry it in the house. It took like 4 of us, right? Those things were huge. And we thought, oh, this is going to change everything as it's going on. And it did. But 45 years later, guess what? We're still here. We still cook on the oven, and we still use a microwave. And that's what AI is doing. So we're having to adapt and learn, but we're changing our process, just like we did with the
Mm.
microwave. Change the way we cook our dinners. And then the service piece of it, that's always changing, right? Because our needs are always changing, whether it's for the client or whether it's in life and the community and what the community and people need as a whole. So it's been a moving piece of it that I look back today, and I think, 22 years we're coming up on, and yeah, we've helped thousands and thousands of people. But to me, my legacy and things that I look at today, that people process service to me is something that it was right in front of me the whole time. It just resonated in a different manner. And it's something that we've embraced and that we kind of live by.
All right, Bill. So I am fascinated by your three pillars philosophy. So, purpose, performance, and relationships. So, I'd like to ask, which of these pillars do you find is most often neglected by technical founders when they are scaling their teams, and what is the cost of that neglect?
Well, I mean, it's a difficult question to answer from just one perspective, right? Because if you
Mm.
break it down and you look at it, if you don't have the right people, that's extremely costly. We know the cost, first of all, to replace an individual is just phenomenal. I mean, it's just stupid, right? But on top of that, that skill set and finding that talent today is even more difficult than it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. And
Mm.
so hiring the wrong person sometimes has been related to or put into a relationship like a cancer, right? That you immediately have to cut that cancer out, and you have to stop that, because hiring the wrong person or bringing the wrong person in, it can ruin an entire team. But
Mm.
if you think about it, that wrong person can also completely mess up the process. So depending on your team or technology side of what you're doing, let's say it's an engineering thing and you have a process because you're doing industrial engineering, or you're looking at, a standard of operation or the way a process runs, and you have someone that comes in that doesn't understand it, or maybe they're not at the same level, or they have their own opinion and they're not looking at the end result of basically the service that you're going to provide to your customer. They can really create a bigger problem because they could come in and change the whole process, and they weren't the right person. So they all run together at the end of the day. But there is
Mm.
no doubt that people are the most important part of this. And even looking at AI today and the conversations around AI, and we think about, is AI going to eliminate people in the workforce? I don't think so. I think not in my lifetime. Let me put it that way. Maybe not in your
Oh, wow.
lifetime either, right? Down the road, maybe. Down the road, maybe we won't. Maybe down the road we won't work like we do because robots and AI will do that. But we're still in a world where we have to do something functionally in order to be given this paper dollar so that we can go and buy something, so that we can trade it for something else because someone else has done the work to create a product that we need to buy to eat, to live, housing, whatever it may be. So there's going to be a change if we're no longer going to work, let's say. But if that's the
Mm.
case, then the question comes, well, what are we going to do? I mean, the real crazy part is to understand those three pillars and how do they play into it down the road with the AI? Or does AI become something very similar to the microwave? We still cook our dinners. We still cook food.
Yeah.
We still use an oven.
Yes.
It didn't go away. But if you think about
Yes.
it, that changed everything. Because when it first came out, we weren't going to need to have people cooking anymore, right? Because it was going to do it
Mm.
all. They still cook. McDonald's still has plenty of people cooking, and Denny's, they got plenty of microwaves, but you still have to have people. So I'm not sure where that's going to go, but I do know it will relate back to those three pillars in one way or another at the end of the day.
Mm. All right. That was really insightful, Bill. So, still on the topic of AI. So, looking at the future of work, how do you see the role of AI transforming the recruitment and talent management process? And what will you say will remain irreplaceably human?
That's the question that's been up for debate a lot, right? And so the
Yeah.
question really comes into play, how advanced is this going to get? I mean, we already use an AI recruiter. So we already have an AI recruiter that conducts phone calls, does interviews, basically a pre kind of interview to qualify individuals. And we're
Mm.
on about like version 7, I think it is right now, of the product. And so when it first came out, it was horrible. It asked the wrong questions. I mean, it was not a good experience for anybody. But today, that experience is much, much better. The AI tool, the agent, the robot, whatever you want to call this thing that we've now evolved into, or her name is Joy. It hasn't evolved to have emotion, but she does. She actually can sense a joke. She can sense when someone has a reflection in their voice in a way
Wow.
to respond back with, "Oh, I get that. Oh, that's kind of funny." And so then it kind of concerns you, does she? Because we know you can trick it. We know that you could tell a joke and be very monotoning with your
Mm.
tone across and not have a large reflection, and she's not going to recognize that. But if your reflection in your tone or your voice comes back with, "Oh, I've tried that. I hate that," she'll go, "Oh, totally understand." But if you said, "Oh, I've done that before. I hate that," she may go, "Oh, okay." I mean, and not respond. So I'm not sure it's there just yet. I think it will get there, but I just don't know if there's going to be enough empathy built in to recognize during an interview whether someone is pulling the wool over your eyes, if you will, or they're just being sincere either. I don't know that we're there yet. I don't know the technology is there yet. There's still a lot of mistakes. We catch a lot of mistakes. What she does for us though is make the experience better. And I think a lot of what AI is doing today is making the experience better for everyone in different ways. And it's also freeing up, if you want to call it like nuisance time. It's just wasted time on things that it's able to allow us to be more efficient. I believe that's working, but it's still making a lot of mistakes. I was on the phone the other day
Mm.
with a person who is a paralegal with a law firm, very, very concerned that her position is going to be it's going to be done with and gone here in the coming years because of AI. And the reality of it is, I said, well, why are you worried? She said, well, AI does it quicker, simpler, and easier for me. And my thing was, we'll go learn how to use the AI correctly because someone still has to go behind the product and double check the work. And that's all there is to it.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It's the same way with humans. We still have to do that as well. We still do that. I mean, I remember when spell check came out. I mean, everybody thought, oh my gosh, we don't have to. What's happened ever since spell check? If you look all the way back to Word Perfect, I think about, my God, that ages me. You go all the way back to like a Word Perfect, it had spell check. That was the most genius thing ever because all of us were like, oh my gosh, I don't have to worry about misspelling and typos and look what I can do. But guess what? 20 something years later, 40 years later, we're like stupid when it comes to spelling anymore. Why? Because we don't have to worry about it. Everything gets spell checked. It's checked before we submit it. We don't worry about it. And
Yeah.
so it's no different than typing. I mean, we used to have in school typing class. Now we don't. I mean, it's like thumb class, I guess. I don't know, but it's not the same. And so this is part of evolution of the human being. This change that we're going through, that's part of it. And man, we're only 1,000 days into AI. That's it. I mean, we're not even crossed that yet. This has not been something that we've been around for more than 1,000 days. And it's already changing us and what we're thinking about. Just imagine
Mm.
what the next 1,000 days are going to bring us. It's just, it's unknown.
Wow, really great perspective. All right, that was very insightful there, Bill. So you've said that the concept of a talent pool is obsolete, replaced by talent networks. So, what does that shift mean in practice? Take for example, a startup founder trying to hire their first senior engineer.
Well, this is just basic, 101. We have a
Mm-hmm.
shortage. We have a shortage of skilled work in the United States. Let me back that up. We have a shortage of skilled workforce. And in the high level talent skilled workforce shortage is real. It's an issue, bottom line. And so in the United States, that's the reason that we utilize H-1B people visas from other countries that we just have a shortage. We're not putting out the right number of individuals in certain sectors. Now it's just not engineering. It's not just one section either. So keep that in mind. This is something if you look back even 10 years ago, and really even over 4 years ago, let's say the COVID time, from a medical side, the shortage within the medical field is ridiculous. I mean, think about the shortage of nurses that we had during COVID and doctors. Today we have a shortage, which you never would have thought of, but we have a shortage for dental, finding dentists and finding dental hygienists. And then we have a shortage around finding pharmacy individuals. There's just a massive shortage. But then we have the same thing or engineering. It doesn't matter which group, electrical, engineering, civil, oil. I mean, all of these different sectors have a shortage of talent that's being brought in. But you could look at it in a lot of different, you would think didn't have a shortage in the legal side with lawyers, right? But we do. There's just a shortage within the workforce. But when you really break it down and you look to manufacturing, you look to like industrial, you look to agriculture, in this country, we have a shortage. And we have got to fix this problem, and especially with the ramp up that we have of bringing companies back and manufacturing back, and all of these job opportunities are going to be here. When we look at things today, we have to look at two. One is when we all know it, and no one can say this isn't true. Fix our immigration rules 100%. No, we can't have illegals
Mm.
coming into our country. Nobody wants that. You've got to have you got to look at what you need people, and you got to have a process, right? Because you got to have a service. I mean, think about this is how crazy this conversation is right here. Our process is broken. We all acknowledge that, and we're trying to fix it. But in the same time, when we look at these positions and roles, we need a process of educating individuals to come in that we don't have in place anymore. We don't have the trade schools, which they're trying to bring back. The president's trying to do something with that, which is fantastic. That's been gone for like 20 years. We need more of the trade schools, the skills to teach, to push people through. Because, like your question about a senior engineer, how do we find a senior engineer? We steal from Peter to pay Paul. Because in order to be at that level, you have to have been moving and working your way up.
Yeah.
That's what happens. And so there isn't a pool. Even 20 years ago, during the Great Recession in the United States, or almost depression, call it, we had a pool of people, and it wasn't even a big deal. It was like, oh, I just need to find somebody, and so we would use technology and job boards, and people put their resume out, and you tossed it out there, and bring your net in, and you bring like 10 people. Okay, today we don't have a pool, and they don't have to do that, because they don't even have to go look if they don't want to, for the most part, depending on what they're doing and what they're wanting to do. The problem is the gap that's being created of individuals that don't have skills that are needed today or are in high demand because we've had a shift in hiring. The hiring model of the past was that you got out of college and you went to work for a company and you stayed at that company from the age of 22 until 62 and you retired, and that's all you did. And then we went to, well, I'm going to go to work for a company right out of college and I'm going to be there about 10 years. Then I'm going to jump to my next one. Then I'm going to stay there for 30 years. And then it changed again. Well, then we started this whole time frame of doing contract business or contract work. We're doing things in and out. Okay, companies were behind. So the generations and people were changing. Technology was changing also, right? Cell phones, all of these changes that took place, wanting things now, social media, but companies weren't changing that quick. Many were, but many were not adapting until COVID. When COVID came around and our pool had already been dried up and we went to 16% unemployment in the country, you had a pool of people available. Okay, fantastic. That's great. But nobody was hiring. So you couldn't go to work. So what good did it do? And so that pool, it was only temporary because the moment hiring started again, guess what? It dried up, and it dried up really quick. Well, technology came right behind it with AI and automation. And all of a sudden, because of costs and because we went from having what we used to call the $10 an hour receptionist, who is now, she wants $24 an hour, 24 bucks an hour. Companies couldn't afford to pay it. And they said, we got to utilize technology to offset that cost. So you know what? We'll get rid of our phone system. We'll do an automated system and utilize technology. Technology got better. Phone systems got better. Now you had the adoption of automation, which was the beginning steps of AI. And because of that, now the phone systems are smarter. They're having conversations with people. You can actually do sales calls with these AI voice tools instead of a person. And so that pool dried up as it's going through again, and we're back to a dried up pool. But now we have that receptionist who had been a receptionist for 20 years answering phones, who never had an opportunity to learn additional tools. And now we hope and pray that he took it upon himself to go and learn something new, because the companies didn't. Companies weren't teaching people new skill. Why? They didn't want them to leave. So when they looked to hire someone new, they said, well, this person's only been in that company for 10 years. Find me a different person. Well, after COVID, that changed. And now after COVID, they look at it as that's not the way we need to look at it. The average tenure in the United States in a position right now is between 1.9 and 2.9 years. That's it. Part of that is just change and the people don't want to be at the same company. Part of that also is that companies changed their way of doing things also and adapted and recognized that, in order for us to learn what the competition's doing, it's cheaper to go and hire some people that have worked at these other companies and have them bring information into our company and help us improve our process. Hire better people, fix our process, we end up with better service. And so they recognized that they needed to change it. And so as that's been adopting and changing and AI has been improving as well, you're slowly getting there. But you're still only talking about adoption of anywhere between 5 and 10% of companies. We're nowhere near where this is devastating to the entire ecosystem of hiring. Is it making a dent? 100%. But there's a lot more talk and fluff around it than there's actual results yet. And so the hiring piece of it is a matter of understanding, adopting, and changing to recognize what's taking place and to figure out, where does a company like ours live in this ecosystem, and then figuring out the best practices so again that we can continue for the best experience for the people, for the process, and for the service.
All right. So, Bill, what gives you the most hope about the future of the employer-employee relationship, especially in this tech sector?
It's still a people business at the end of the day. And I think that down the road, it'll just become different the way we do things, but it takes time. the interesting part of this is when we look at, and the automotive industry is probably, I think, one of the better ones to look at, because you think about a car and the way it's made as being a large box item, right? And they
Mm,
started adopting to using robots 30 years ago, 40 years ago, I mean, if you really look at it. And yeah, so I know we have robots like at Amazon pulling product off the shelf and running up and down and moving stuff. Of course we do. That's part of automation of things. That's automating the systems and the way that things flow. But if you really think about the automotive industry and you visit a plant, our son works for an automotive company as an engineer, and I have visited, a
oh
plant
wow.
where they're making vehicles, and I have seen the rows of robots, and you look at those robots and they're welding and they're doing the welding and the pieces and all those different parts that a person used to do.
Yeah.
But it took years and years and years to get to that point. What's been interesting with AI is that it's not taking that long to adapt.
Mm,
So I don't know how that's going to be. But does that mean in 10 years we all have a robot in our home? I've seen some of the video and um, interviews with stuff that's being built that they look like humans, right? I mean, is it coming? Is iRobot about to be a reality? I don't know. Are we ready for that? Are we going to build armies of robots? I don't know. I just don't believe that I'm going to be around to see that. It's a really difficult question because I mean, the hope is that the relationship stays, that we figure out how to do this. But I know just recently the president was in China, and China's president talked about putting basically a law into effect that we won't allow AI to go to that. And
mm.
so, is that going to happen? I remember not too many years ago, the same thing happened with cloning, and that people were worried about people being able to clone people. And I just saw something on the news last night that a certain ex football player had just cloned his dog and has a dog that's a clone of his dog that passed away like a year ago. I don't know. I mean, I just, I'm not sure I'm going to be around to see that, and I'm not so sure I want to be either.
All right. So, Bill, part of the theme of this podcast is centered around innovation. So, for that reason, I like to save one question on innovation for every guest I have a conversation with on this podcast. So, in your work, which bridges deep economic analysis with the practical human system of talent acquisition, so what does the word innovation truly mean to you?
Well, I think there's two sides. There's the business side and then the personal side, right? And so the innovation from a business standpoint is always about how you lower your cost to increase your bottom line. You don't go into business to lose money, you go into business to make money
Mm,
and to open up doors and opportunities. So that innovation is, to me, is always about looking at something new and understanding that we have to continue to change every day and we have to be quicker at it than our competition. And then we have to somehow stay ahead of what's happening outside of our walls. Now, we've always done that until AI. We can't keep up with it. There's so many different tools being thrown down our throats every day and tossed in front of us that, and we've tried a lot. And most of them, I got to be honest, they don't work. And so it's been interesting. It's kind of been the roadside medicine man trying to sell you something, and so we're in an era where you do have a lot of companies jumping into the space trying to be innovative, but it just doesn't work. I do believe we're headed for a bubble in AI. I don't think it'll be. I lived through the .com bubble. I don't think it'll be anything like that, but I do think we're about to hit. There's going to be a bubble. There's just too many things out there. There'll be consolidation, and we'll end up with the right products. Innovation from a people standpoint is about how they do the same thing. How does a person retool themselves to be an experience for an employer to hire you? How do you come to the table with something to differentiate yourself from someone else? What did you
mm,
do different to stand out so that someone looks at your background and experience and says, I need to hire that person? So the innovation is, what steps are you taking to differentiate every single day? I can't tell you how many conversations I have with people today who say, "Oh, I'm not on LinkedIn," as an example. Okay, if you're in the space and looking to do any type of career change, right now at this time, there's only one place you must be, and I don't get paid for this. It's LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the place to be when it comes to career changes. I don't care. Forget everything else. That is the most important place to be. It builds trust, it makes you authentic, and companies are going there to verify who you are. So
Mm.
being innovative is about how do you create your page? How do you make sure you have a page? How does it show and what are you showing that you can do and skills? That's being innovative because the day of companies coming after you and you not having to prove anything back to them is over. There's a supply and demand shift, yes, percent. But if you don't fit into that need and you may have the skill set, let's say like the example earlier of a receptionist, then how are you going to differentiate? You're going to need to be innovative. Taking classes, courses, learning how to write prompts for AI, anything that differentiates that adds value back to you is important. So that innovative piece is something that individuals, candidates haven't been used to having to do because instead they've looked at it as if they need me, I'm getting 5 phone calls a day. I'm not worried about it. You need to be worried about it because the interview process is not the same. The scrutiny, even when they find a needle in a haystack, it doesn't make sense, except they don't want to make a bad hire. Why don't they want to make a bad hire? They're not willing to take a chance on messing up the people. They don't want to mess up their people in their groups because when they mess up the people in the groups, it messes up their process, which ends up messing up their service. So the whole thing correlates all together. So the innovative side for individuals, it's just as important today as it is for companies out there trying to be innovative and wanting to be innovative to attract the talent that is needed.
Fantastic, fantastic perspective you put things into there. So, finally, for our listeners who want to learn more about your systematic approach to building teams, so where is the best place for them to go connect with you and Frontline Source Group?
Well, the best place is obviously our website. So we made the name really difficult. It's just the name of our company. So it's just frontlinesourcegroup.com. They can go there. From there, they can also click on links that will take them to our LinkedIn company page. Follow us on LinkedIn. That is definitely the place to be. I mean, we everything is there. Articles that we post out from the recruiters, information, white pages. We pump out a lot of information just to educate or try to at least point people in the right direction to help them out. Changing careers for a lot of people still today, that's not something they're used to doing, even doing interviews. It's not something we do. And so helping and pointing people in the right direction. Also, when you're going through a career change or needing to make a career change, it's very difficult. It can be very stressful. And so we make our process very simple. It's very easy. Again, utilizing AI allows us to just get their information into our system. And then when we have new positions that come in, our system will go and evaluate the background and pick the right individuals for us to have a conversation with. A lot of people get upset and they're like, "Oh, I want to talk to somebody today." We can't physically do that. It's not the way it is anymore. I wish it was. And so in order for us to be as highly successful as we are, we've streamlined that so that experience for those individuals going through that can be an outstanding experience for them as well during a difficult time.
All right, Bill, it's been a really insightful conversation with you. And I am totally excited to have you on the show today to share these great and valuable insights.
Well, thank you very much. It was a pleasure to be here. I truly appreciate it.